brothers, I can't do this alone. I need you." Were raised. The Israelites prevailed. When his arms grew tired, Aaron and Hur came to hold them up. That story teaches us that raised hands in prayer have real spiritual impact, even when we're weary. In the stillness of the night, lifting your hands from your bed can become a silent declaration to the unseen realm. I belong to the Lord. My hope is in him. My worship will not be silenced by weariness. And lifting your hands isn't just for praise, it's also for receiving. Imagine yourself as a child, reaching up for your father to take you in his arm. That's what happens when you lift your safer or better time to pray than now. In Nehemiah 2:4, when the king asked Nehemiah what he requested, the scripture says, "So I prayed to the God of heaven." It wasn't a long prayer. This age, Ephesians, darkness isn't just a poetic image, it's a reality. Psalm 91 speaks of the terror by night that God protects his children from. Those terrors may not always take the form of physical danger. They come as anxiety, fear, nightmares, oppressive thoughts, or even sudden feelings of hopelessness. The night is often when the enemy tries to attack your mind, because that's when you're not just comforting yourself, you're declaring truth into the spiritual realm. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, he didn't argue with the devil using human reasoning. He spoke scripture. That same weapon is in your hands. Think of Paul and Silas in Acts 16. At midnight, they prayed and sang hymns to God. The result? Believe that God is already working while you sleep. Just as seeds grow underground in the unseen, God's answers often develop in the hidden hours. When you cultivate the habit of ending your day with prayer, your bed becomes more than a place of sleep. It becomes a sanctuary. And over time, you'll find that your first instinct when fear comes is to run to God, not to panic. That's because your spirit will have learned the rhythm of resting in him. Is how the Most High himself. His life was the perfect image of divine blessing. 7 sons and 3 daughters formed his offspring. 7,000 sheep covered the fields like white clouds. 3,000 camels crossed the desert, carrying riches from city to city. 500 yoke of oxen plowed fields that produced abundant harvests. But Job's prosperity was not his treasure. Every dawn, the sun painted the mountains gold. He would rise to intercede for his children. He offered burnt offerings in case they had sinned in their hearts during the celebrations. This routine, Satan had been observing, calculating, planning. His response revealed his essence, been roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Then God spoke words that would change. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself, do not lay a finger. The accuser left the divine presence with limited but terrible permission. He could touch Job's possessions, but not his life. The wager was not about Job alone. It was about all of humanity. Can anyone love God for who he is, and not for what he can give them? Does disinterested faith exist? Is it possible to bless the name of the Lord, both in abundance and in ashes? These questions resonated in the heavenly courts, while the earth was about to witness a demonstration of faith that would transcend the centuries. It was a day like any other in Job's house. His children were celebrating according to their custom, enjoying the abundance that their father had worked to provide. Laughter filled the air, wine flowed freely. Job, faithful to his routine, was probably planning the sacrifices he would offer the next day. He had no idea that this.
So all my fruits and vegetables, I always wash them before I put in the fridge. So it's with ease. When I'm ready to use them, I just use them. I don't have to go through the hassle of washing them. And yes, I'm using a bread knife because I like to use this I feel like it cuts better, you know?
And 500 donkeys had disappeared in minutes. The servants who were caring for them lay dead. Years of work evaporated like vapor, but this was only the beginning of a nightmare orchestrated from the shadows. The first messenger was still speaking when another appeared, staggering with scorched clothing. The fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. 7,000 sheep, the heart of his livestock, had been destroyed by heavenly fire. The description was terrifying, the fire of God. It seemed as if heaven itself had turned against Job. The speed of the attack suggested supernatural coordination, as if invisible forces had orchestrated the simultaneous destruction from different directions. The accuser's hand moved with diabolical precision. He had not finished speaking when a third messenger arrived, panting, with bleeding wounds. The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on the camels and made off with them. They can bear the loss of riches, but breaks of the death of his children. The 4th messenger would bring the news that would make all the previous ones seem insignificant. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came running, his face pale as death. Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead to be praised. Integrity. Those words rang like victory bells in heaven. Despite having lost everything, Job remained blameless. The first test had demonstrated that his faith did not depend on his possessions. The accuser had been publicly humiliated in the heavenly courts, but Satan launched a second accusation, even more cynical than the first. Skin for skin, a man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. It was a proverb that meant people would sacrifice anything to save their own lives. The new wager was chilling. According to the enemy, Job had endured the loss of his goods because his own life had not been threatened. The survival instinct, the accuser argued, was stronger than any faith. If Job suffered in his own body, if he experienced constant physical pain, if his life hung by a thread, then surely he would curse God. God accepted the challenge again with the same unwavering limit. Very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. The accuser could attack Job's body, could inflict any physical pain, but could not kill him. Job's life had to be preserved for the test to be complete. Satan went out from the presence of God and immediately afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. It was not a common, but a supernatural affliction designed to cause the greatest possible suffering without causing death. It was physical torture in its purest form. The disease covered his entire body without leaving a single spot without sores. Painful ulcers erupted all over his skin. Unbearable itching tormented him day and night. Fever consumed his body. Nightmares assaulted his sleep. His breath became foul. His weight plummeted. His face became disfigured to the point of being unrecognizable lament. He had become a spectacle, an object of horror to all who knew him. Those who had previously respected him now crossed to the other side of the road to avoid him. The children who had once greeted him with reverence now threw stones at him from a distance. He was the walking dead, a living testimony to human suffering. Then came the blow that no external enemy could have given. His own wife, seeing his desperate condition, broken by the pain of losing her 10 children and seeing her husband reduced to human wreckage, said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." Their intentions were noble, their hearts were in the right place, but what they would do next would demonstrate the painful truth, visceral. They wept aloud. These were not silent tears, but deep weeping that sprang from the shock of seeing their friend in such a condition. They tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Traditional gestures of extreme mourning. situations where words are inadequate, where silent presence is the greatest gift that can be offered. This was paradoxically their moment of greatest wisdom. If the story had ended there, they would be remembered as the best comforters in history. But unfortunately, the silence was broken. After 7 days, Job opened his mouth, not to curse God as Satan expected, but to curse the day of his birth. In a torrent of painful poetry, he expressed his desire to have never existed. His words were the cry of a soul in total agony. May the day of my birth perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived. Job did not directly question God, but he questioned the value of existence itself. He wished that the day of his birth would be erased from the calendar, that he had never been part of creation. He described death as a desired rest, a relief from the torture of living. Why is light given to those in misery, and life to the bitter of soul? Hidden children had
Not
died
really.
because they had sinned. The pain of the...
Okay. Yeah, I said nothing. I just started.
has even forgotten some of your sin. According to Zophar, Job wasn't even receiving all the punishment he deserved. These 3 men, with the best intentions, became what Job would call miserable comforters. They represented a theology that could not deal with the mystery of inexplicable suffering. For them, all pain had to have a direct moral explanation. Sin always led to suffering. Suffering always indicated sin. It was a simple, orderly equation, but completely false. Job responded with growing frustration. I have heard many things like these. You are miserable comforters, all of you. He accused them of twisting the truth, of being like torrents that fail when most needed. These men who had come to bring comfort had now become accusers more cruel than any enemy. Their theology had blinded them to compassion. The fundamental problem with Job's friends was that they were more interested in defending their theology than in understanding their friend. They had prefabricated answers to questions they had never personally experienced. Their error was not malicious, but it was devastating. Instead of sitting with Job in the mystery of his pain, they tried to resolve it with simplistic religious formulas. Instead of offering compassionate presence, these men, everything they said afterward only added weight to Job's burden. After enduring the incessant sermons of his friends, after being accused of sins he had not committed, after his pain was minimized and his integrity questioned, Job reached a breaking point. He could no longer maintain diplomatic composure. His soul cried out to be heard. His pain demanded expression. Oh, that my word of a human heart seeking... His questioning did not deny the existence
Don't worry
or
about
goodness of
that.
God, but desperately sought to understand his incomprehensible realm. The voice of the creator of the universe began to speak.
The silence that had tortured Job for so long was finally broken, but not with explanations, but with questions that would reveal his total ignorance about the most basic matters of the universe. Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? God's first question was direct and penetrating. It was not a question born of ignorance, but rhetorical, putting everything in perspective. Job had spoken much about God's ways, but according to the Most High, he had obscured understanding with words that lacked true wisdom. Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. God invited Job to prepare for an exchange, but it would not be Job asking the questions. It was time for the Creator to examine the creature. It was time for the potter to interrogate about his designs. And then began a series of questions that would humble all human arrogance and reveal the vastness of man's ignorance before the interrogation exposed the smallness of the creature.
Exactly! That's the whole point.
Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. Footing set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? The image is glorious. The creation of the world was an event that made the stars sing and the angels shout with joy. Job had not been there, had not participated in that cosmic celebration. His vision of the universe was like that of an ant trying to understand an architect's blueprints. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? God spoke of his control over the most powerful forces of nature. The ocean, it was a creature of colossal dimensions. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit. This was not a description of any known animal. A tail that swayed like a cedar suggested something of unimaginable size. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. Behemoth was not just large, but practically indestructible. Its bone structure was like metal, its limbs like forged iron bars. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. This statement is crucial. Behemoth ranked first among the works of God, a masterpiece of divine creation. Only its creator could approach it with a sword. No human being had the power to tame or destroy this creature. It was a living testimony to creative power that is completely beyond human reach. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. The creature was so large that entire mountains served as its pasture. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Then God presented a second, even more terrifying creature, Leviathan. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you for you to take it as your slave for life? The questions were sarcastic. Human fishing methods were ridiculously inadequate for this beast. Leviathan, God who had created it. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Sets coals ablaze and flames dart from its mouth. Leviathan was a creature of fire, like a living dragon, but real.
No me have to wait for peace cook.
It was pure
Because
power,
people try to
incarnate
style me
terror,
up.
indomitable majesty. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. When it rises up,
Yes,
the
I'm
mighty
jumping
are
at pressure
terrified.
cooker.
They
Oh,
retreat
well.
before its thrashing. Nothing on earth is its equal.
Oh, you
A
mean make it
creature
quick,
without
cook
fear.
fast.
It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Leviathan was unique on earth.
Man,
without
it not
fear,
take long to
despising
cook
everything humans
fish.
considered great and powerful.
Swim
It was the
around.
king of all proud creatures, a symbol of power that is completely beyond human control.
Oh, boy.
The message was clear as crystal. If Job could not understand
pretty
or
sure that
control
was
these
secure,
creatures that
then.
God had made, how could he presume to understand or question them to obtain justification? But when he finally saw God, he no longer needed to defend himself. The divine presence was all he needed. There was no explanation of why he suffered. There was no revelation of the cosmic wager between God and Satan. There were no
Delicious, like what?
There was only the overwhelming presence of the Almighty, and that was infinitely more.
So I have some frozen coconut milk. I'm just gonna add some water. I have left it out to thaw for a bit. And I'm gonna add it to the pot.
They kept their time without delay. Winter snow covered the land when it was mentioned. Summer heat came when it was commanded. The seasons changed one after another, just as God had ordered them from the beginning.
And now I'm gonna season the
So
pot.
the trees standing firm. Even in harsh winters, some ancient cedars stayed green year after year. Rivers flowed in their channels. The winds blew in their time. The rain fell when it was sent. Every creature on earth followed the law placed upon it. None argued. None resisted. None tried to change their path. But when
I am angry with you and your two friends because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. God's first act after the encounter with Job was to address the three friends. His verdict was surprising and revealing. He was angry with them, not with Job. Throughout the entire debate, these men had believed they were defending God. They had argued for his justice. They had explained his ways. They had tried to justify his actions. But according to God himself, they had not spoken correctly about him. In contrast, Job, who had questioned and cried out, had spoken what was right. So now take 7 bulls and 7
Delicious.
rams and go to my servant Job and
I
sacrifice.
got thyme
shown how a great change
and
began
scallion.
among the angels. In those days, when people were many upon the earth and daughters were born to them, certain angels looked down from heaven and saw them. These angels were known as the Watchers. They had been given a role. They had a place. They were meant to observe and serve under the command of the Most High. There were 2, so he asked them all to swear together. And
Garlic.
there on Mount Hermon, they made a solemn oath. They bound themselves with a curse upon themselves, so that none would turn back from what they had decided. They agreed to choose wives from among the daughters of men. They agreed to join themselves to human women and live as men upon the earth. This was not a small step. It was a crossing of a boundary. The Watchers left their proper dwelling. They stepped away from the order that had been set for them. They took on the form of men and walked openly among humanity. They moved forward. What began as a desire in their hearts became action. Men learned to
Okay,
turn
so
war
while I'm
into
cooking,
weapon.
I am going
What
to
had once
do,
been simple tools now became
I want to make
instruments
some
for law.
tea.
But Azazel did not stop there. He also taught about ornaments and decoration. He showed how to craft bracelets and jewels. He revealed the use of colored dyes and ways to beautify the body. In quiet places, women learned how to use cosmetics to change their appearance. What had once been natural became something altered and adorned. Other Watchers shared their own teachings. Semjaza taught enchantments and the cutting of roots for secret uses. Barakijal taught the signs of the stars. Others explained the movements of the sun and the paths of the moon. They revealed hidden knowledge about the heavens, things that were never meant to be uncovered in that way. As this knowledge spread, something began to shift.
Alright, there's the rice.
Colleges, and I want you to go to school.
Exactly what I say to you. What are you talking about? You don't want me to tell Mama. You sound like you're 5 years old. I might sound 5, I know one thing. That nigga gonna do exactly what I tell him to. You keep playing with brilliant people, they gonna show you how smart they are, not showing you how dumb you really are. Oh, the fuck is this speed? See, there's nothing more to say.
All done.
Say I got him. So thank you, brother, for doing all
Smell
this
it.
disgusting shit you like to do. Thank you. And for real.
Yum, yum. And my carrot juice. Yes, honey. It's dinner time.